It was a moment that would change everything. A homeless man, down on his luck and desperate for help, approached country music superstar Carrie Underwood on a quiet street in Nashville. All he asked for was a single dollar. But what happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. Carrie's response wasn't just about money. It was about compassion, humanity, and the power of second chances. This is a story of how one small act of kindness can change a life forever. It was a crisp autumn evening in Nashville, Tennessee. The city pulsed with its usual energy, the streets alive with the hum of music spilling from honky-tonk bars, the cheer of tourists wandering through the neon-lit streets, and the rhythmic shuffle of boots tapping to the latest country hit. Carrie Underwood, one of country music's biggest stars, had just finished a long day of rehearsals for her upcoming tour. Exhausted but determined to enjoy a fleeting moment of peace, she strolled down a quieter side street, a soft breeze tangling with her hair as she walked, appreciating the golden glow of streetlights casting long shadows on the sidewalk. Carrie had long known the sacrifices that came with fame, endless concerts, rehearsals, and a constant pressure to meet expectations. But tonight, just for a few precious moments, she let the noise of her high-profile life fade into the background. She felt the cool autumn air, listened to the faint sound of street musicians strumming their guitars nearby, and felt a grateful peace settle over her, a moment to simply breathe, to just be herself, and to take in the beauty of the city she'd come to love. Across the street, a man stood near the edge of the sidewalk. His figure seemed almost swallowed by the shadows, a quiet presence in the bustling street. He wore tattered clothes, each piece a testament to nights spent on cold benches and forgotten corners of the city. His face, marked with the passage of time and hardship, looked like someone who had known too much loss too soon. His name was James, and today marked the beginning of his 4th week on a park bench not far from where Carrie walked. He hadn't eaten a proper meal in days, and his stomach growled in hunger, a constant reminder of how far he had fallen. Every day was a struggle for survival. The years of difficulty had hardened him, and at times it felt like all he had known, his family, his job, his home, had slipped through his fingers, just out of reach. As he scanned the street for a passerby who might spare a few coins, his eyes found Carrie. At first, he hesitated. What could someone like her possibly see in him? What could she offer beyond another spare dollar or a token gesture of charity? Surely, he thought, she'd have no time for someone like him. But desperation had worn away his pride, and what was left of his dignity urged him to take one last chance. Stepping forward, James crossed the street, each step heavier than the last, a swirl of emotions fighting for control. Fear, hope, shame, and a flicker of anticipation. He was unsure of what to expect, but knew he couldn't keep walking without trying. "Excuse me, ma'am, could you spare $1? Just enough to get something to eat?" His voice was barely audible, lost amidst the sounds of the city. Carrie stopped. Her shoes barely made a sound on the pavement as she came to a halt. She could have kept walking. Most people would have. She had places to be, meetings to attend, a schedule bursting with obligations. But there was something in the man's eyes that made her pause. They weren't just pleading. They carried a deeper, quieter message. The dignity of a person who once had a full life, who still carried within him the faintest spark of hope. Carrie didn't just see a homeless man. She saw a person, a soul in need of connection, a human being who, despite his circumstances, deserved compassion. In those few seconds, she recognized his pain. It reminded her, too, of her own struggles. How? Even when she was just a small-town girl dreaming big in Oklahoma, there were moments when people believed in her, when she wasn't sure she believed in herself. Of course, she said, her voice calm and sincere as she reached for her purse. But instead of simply handing over $1, she paused. "What's your name?" The man was taken aback. No one had ever asked him for his name. Most people wouldn't look at him for more than a second, let alone inquire about his identity. It's James," he stammered, unsure of how to respond. "James," Carrie repeated, her voice warm. "Tell me your story." James hesitated, glancing at the ground before he looked up at her. This wasn't a conversation he was used to having. Most people who passed by simply tossed a coin into his hand, or worse, avoided eye contact entirely, as if he wasn't even there. The world had long grown indifferent to his struggles, a man lost in the anonymity of street life. But there was something about Carrie's presence, the genuine kindness in her eyes, that made him feel as though he mattered. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he was being truly seen. "I used to be a construction worker," James began, his voice shaking with a mix of shame and vulnerability. "Had a good job, a family. Things were going well. But then I got injured at work. Nothing serious, but enough to keep me from doing what I loved. The injury led to complications, and I lost my job. My marriage, well, it didn't survive that. I lost everything. The house, the car, and eventually my family. For the past few years, I've been surviving the best I can. But there's no real hope left. It's been a while since I had a proper meal or a warm bed. I just don't know how to get back to the life I had before." Carrie's heart ached as she listened. She had her own experiences of challenges, different from James's, but struggles nonetheless. She had faced doubt, rejection, and the exhausting pursuit of success. But she had also had people who believed in her, who helped her when she thought she couldn't keep going. She knew the power of that support. "James," she said, her voice steady and compassionate, "I hear you. I hear your story, and I want to help. But $1, it won't change your life. You deserve more than that." Carrie reached into her purse again, this time pulling out her phone. She made a quick call, her voice soft and urgent, the words clearly meant for someone who would understand. James stood there, confused but holding on to the tiniest flicker of hope. He had been on the streets too long to believe in promises. Too many people had offered empty words or shallow acts of kindness that didn't last. But something about Carrie's sincerity struck him. A few minutes later, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. Out stepped Carrie's assistant, who handed her a small, nondescript envelope. "James," Carrie said, gently turning to face him, "this is a gift card to a local shelter. They'll give you a warm meal, a place to sleep, and help you get back on your feet. But that's not all." She handed him the envelope, her eyes soft with empathy. "There's also a voucher for a job training program. It's not a complete solution, but it's a start." James took the envelope, his hands trembling as he tried to comprehend what was happening. It wasn't just a physical gesture that moved him. It was the weight of the compassion behind it. For the first time in months, maybe years, he felt seen, truly seen. His eyes welled with tears as he struggled to find words. Why are you doing this for me?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm just a stranger to you." Carrie smiled softly, her voice filled with warmth and conviction. "Because everyone deserves a second chance, James. And because I believe in you." That night, James checked into the shelter. The staff greeted him with a kindness he hadn't experienced in a long time. It wasn't just a warm bed or a hot meal. It was a recognition of his humanity, something he hadn't felt in what seemed like forever. Over the next few weeks, James enrolled in the job training program. The skills he learned gave him new hope and the opportunity to rebuild a life that had once seemed so out of reach. Slowly but surely, he found a part-time job, rented a small apartment, and took the first steps toward reconnecting with his estranged daughter. The road was long, but every small victory fueled his determination. As James worked through his own transformation, he felt compelled to give back. Inspired by Carrie's act of kindness, he began volunteering at the shelter where he had found hope, helping others who were struggling. Sharing his story, he offered them the same hope that Carrie had given him. He became a symbol of resilience, of the possibility of turning one's life around, no matter how far down the road of despair they had traveled. James was no longer just surviving. He was thriving. Carrie's encounter with James stayed with her long after they parted ways. It wasn't about the recognition or the praise. It was a profound reminder that small, genuine acts of kindness could change everything. She later shared the story in an interview, not to glorify her own actions, but to inspire others to open their hearts. "We all have the ability to make a difference," she said, her voice sincere and humble. "Sometimes it's not about how much you give, but the intention behind it. A little kindness can go a long way. You don't need to be famous or rich to help someone. Sometimes, all it takes is a moment just to listen, just to show someone they matter. That's where change begins." This story is a poignant reminder that no matter how far we fall, there is always hope. One person's belief in us can spark a change, guiding us back to the life we thought was lost forever. Carrie Underwood's act of kindness didn't just change James's life. It created a ripple effect that touched countless others. Through James's transformation, others saw the power of kindness to heal, inspire, and rebuild. In a world where people are often consumed by their busy lives, it's easy to overlook the power of small moments. But stories like James's serve as a reminder. We all have the power to change someone's world by offering compassion, understanding, and a willingness to see others for who they truly are. The world may seem cold at times, but through these simple, genuine acts of kindness, we can create warmth where it is most needed. And in that warmth, lives are transformed and hope is reborn.